It is not often that fatal plane crashes happen, and even less often that there are survivors. But let's learn about the survivor of the deadliest sole survivor ocean crash in history. "12-year-old Bahia Bakari was born August 15, 1996, in Evry, France, to Comorian parents Aziza Abudu and Kassim Bakari. Her father worked as a janitor while her mother was a housewife, and she was the oldest among 2 younger brothers and 2 younger sisters. On June 30th, 2009, Bahia and her mother were traveling to Comoros that summer for her grandfather's wedding, while her 3 other siblings stayed home with their father. They began their travels from Paris on Yemenia Flight 749 and had a connecting flight in Sana'a, Yemen. From there, the passengers boarded Yemenia Flight 626 with its final destination in Comoros. And then a terrifying turn of events took place. As the plane descended for its approach, only 9 minutes away from the Prince Said Ibrahim International Airport, the jet plunged into the ocean 9 miles north of the coastline of Grande Comore Island, breaking apart as it hit the water around 2 a.m. All Bahia can recall was a paralyzing shock. There is a black hole in her memory from the moment she was on the plane to the moment she found herself in the water. She quickly clung to a piece of wreckage from the ship, and she could hear other women screaming for help, but she could not see anyone. Soon after, fatigue came over her, and she fell asleep. Once she came to, she no longer heard the voices and cries for help. Yet still in a state of shock, she convinced herself that there was no crash. She was the only one who flew out of the plane, and the others landed safely. At the same time, all she could think about was her mother.
Je me dis que ma mère, la connaissance, je me suis dit si je suis tombée, elle doit être très paniquée et elle doit s'énerver sur tout le monde en demandant mais où est ma fille, où est ma fille.
She thought that her mother would scold her for not wearing her seatbelt. But 12 to 14 hours after the plane crash, local authorities sent fishermen and speedboats to Grande Comore to see if there were any survivors. Some rescue workers spotted Bahia floating on the debris and threw her a life buoy, but she was too weak to grab it. That's when one of the rescuers swam to her, and the others pulled them aboard, where she was wrapped in a blanket and given warm sugar water to drink while being rushed to the hospital. Bahia suffered from hypothermia, a broken collarbone, and bruises to her face, elbow, and foot. But when she asked about her mother, she was told that she was in the next room so as to not traumatize her. But the heartbreaking truth was that she did not survive the crash along with 152 others. In fact, Bahia was the sole survivor of the Comoros plane crash. The Aviation Safety Network website said that the Yemenia accident was the second deadliest plane crash ever in which only one person had survived. While at the hospital, she told an unusual version of events that led her into the Indian Ocean while still in a state of shock. She told rescuers that she alone had fallen from the plane because she pressed her forehead too hard against its windows. But then she was informed of the crash and what actually happened by a psychologist at the hospital. Horrified at the news, her father was actually stunned to discover Bahia was somehow still alive. She was described as a timid girl who was not a good swimmer. Her father, Kassim Bakari, said, "She is a very, very shy girl. I would have never thought she would have survived like this. I can't say that it is a miracle. I can say that it is God's will." 3 days later, she arrived back in Paris and reunited with her family. She was dubbed the Miracle Girl by the world press. In 2010, she wrote a book named I'm Bahia, the Miracle Girl. She said she did it for the victims' relatives to, in her words, leave them something to hold on to. After studying the plane's black boxes, French aviation investigators from the Bureau of Investigations and Analysis found that pilot error was the cause of the crash. They said, the accident is not explained by a technical problem or by an explosion. The agency wrote, the accident was due to inappropriate actions by the crew on the flight commands, which brought the plane into a stall. The investigators noted that several other factors also contributed to the accident, including windy conditions at the airport and the lack of training or briefing of the crew before operating the flight to Moroni, an airport classified as having difficult landing conditions. In 2015, Yemenia was ordered by French civil courts to pay more than 30 million euros to the victims' families. 13 years after the crash, a trial against Yemenia Airways is underway in France, and for the first time, Bahia, now 25 years old, testified. Yemenia has been charged with manslaughter and unintentional injuries where the airline's lawyers have denied responsibility. They are being tried in Paris over Bahia's injuries and the deaths of 65 French nationals. They are also facing a fine up to 225,000 euros, with 560 plaintiffs in the case who mostly come from Comoros. During her testimony, she stated that the most difficult part of the aftermath was grieving for her mother, whom she was incredibly close to. She added, I knew my siblings needed my mother, but I could not replace her. Her mother's body was luckily identified, and the family held a proper funeral service. Yemenia Airways has not sent a representative to the trial due to the ongoing civil war in Yemen. To no representative, Bahia responded by saying, I would have wanted them to listen to us, to listen to me, to have felt myself respected. The trial ended on June 2nd, 2022, and what happens now is not yet known. At 25, Bahia Bakari is now pursuing a master's degree in real estate and has resumed flying 2 years after the accident. But as we remember Bahia as the sole survivor, we would also like to acknowledge the 152 other passengers whose fates were not as fortunate. Wishing the victims of the Yemenia Flight 626 paradise and sending great prayers out to their families. May justice be served on their behalf, and thank you all for watching.